Hola, buenas tardes, senoritas. Senoritas. As if there's any girls watching this video. Who am I kidding? This could be my most controversial video so far, but I like a bit of controversy, so I'm not worried about that. This is Real Madrid's top 5 greatest midfielders in history. Now, I've started with the midfield because it's my favourite area of the pitch. So, usually midfielders are the players that I'm most attracted to, most interested in watching. But if you like this video, I will be happy to do videos on maybe goalkeepers, left backs, strikers, other videos. But I'm starting with the midfielders. Now, when we talk about greatest, it's that word can mean different things to different people. It could be about the amount of titles won. It could be about longevity, how many games are played. I certainly think a player that, let's say, played 600 games, but not at, let's say, the highest level, has a greater legacy than someone who might have played 30 games, but to an unbelievable level, for example. But the main reason I'm judging this is based on the eyes and the talent, and what player would I want in my midfield to win me a game of football. That's how I'm judging this. Now, obviously, there's two players on this list, one especially that I've never saw before because it was way before my time. So you could say, how am I qualified to make this video? But all I can say is I'm currently in the country of Peru, and I spent the last few years traveling around the world. I've actually gone outside and lived life a little bit. But before then, when I was younger, I didn't have any girlfriends. I spent so much of my youth watching about Real Madrid, reading about Real Madrid. I can recommend this book, for example. It's a very well written book about the history of Real Madrid. I used to go on this website called, I want to say Football Italia, I think, but you could basically watch full replays of games, not just highlights. And I would watch a lot of games from the 90s. I didn't go back further than that, so I can't claim to have a complete encyclopedia knowledge of Real Madrid, but I will do my best. And another caveat that I want to introduce here is that I'm not including wide midfield players. Back in the day, the formations were different. You'd often have a four-man in midfield, and the wide midfielders would be classed as midfielders. I'm not doing that. It's already difficult enough to try and compare, let's say, a Casemiro to a Guti, so I'm certainly not going to include wide midfielders. That could be in a different video, maybe. So there's going to be no Michel, no Luis Figo, no Steve McManaman. I'm going to keep these to central midfielders. So, yes, that's enough of me rambling on then. Let's get into the top 5. Okay, so number 5 then is the legendary Argentinian midfield maestro Fernando Rodondo. What a player this guy was. Now, Tony Cruz is not in this list, and that's probably going to freak some people out, but I'm going to try and defend my opinion here. So Tony Cruz might come up a lot with this guy, because really Tony Cruz should be in this list, I know. But Fernando Rodondo was so special. Now, in 1985, he was part of the under-16 Argentinian national team that won the South American Championships, and you can see footage of him being interviewed. Actually, he already looks like a superstar, even though he's that young. But I'm not going to pretend that I've seen any footage of this tournament. I don't know how good he was back then, but what I do know is that when he left Argentina, he joined Tenerife in La Liga. He didn't come to Barcelona or Real Madrid or Bayern Munich or Man United, and he took a team that was struggling in a relegation battle to finish fifth in the league and qualify for the UEFA Cup at the time. This is an amazing achievement. This is a great sign of greatness for me. Steven Gerrard never won a Premier League title, but he took a Liverpool team that wasn't that great and took them to amazing heights. That to me is greatness as well. So I'm not holding the lack of titles against Rodondo in this. And at the time, Valdano was in love with him, and he was the reason who he brought. He was the reason that convinced Madrid to sign Rodondo, and he said that he's all I want. I only want Rodondo. I don't need any other players. And at the time, don't forget, Redondo joined a team that hadn't won the Champions League for almost 30 years. Tony Cruz joined a Real Madrid team that had just won the Champions League. They were a great team. And it's not to criticise Cruz, by the way. I'm just trying to defend my point. And Fernando Rodondo helped us win our probably the most important trophy in Madrid's history, which was the 1998 World Cup Champions League. And he was such an elegant defensive midfielder. Now, when you think of elegance, you think of Zidane, you think of Messi. To be so elegant as a defensive midfielder is really unbelievable. And another advantage that I do have him over Tony Cruz, and an important point I think, is the eras you play in. Fernando Rodondo played in the 80s, he played with Maradona, he played in the 90s, he played in the 2000s, and I am very confident in saying that if he was around today, he would be the best midfielder in the world. He would be the Rodri, he would be unbelievable. He has the elegance of someone like Busquets, but I am not so sure that the modern players could have played in the past with the physicality of the game. Now, I think the modern players are technically better. I think Tony Cruz is probably better on the ball than Redondo was in terms of his ability to his ball control and his awareness. Let's say in terms of knowing when to win a foul, when to play the pass. Tony Cruz's IQ was unbelievable, but I'm not sure if he could have handled the physicality back then. I don't know if any of the players can. They're definitely fitter, but they're so soft now. So I'm given Redondo's ability to play in, I think, any era, and to bring such an elegance to a defensive part of the midfield. And don't forget, the midfield in the 80s and 90s was a really combative era. This was when real tough players played against each other, and he was so beautiful to watch. So he had a beautiful left foot, the magical back heel that he done at the Old Trafford to set up Raul for that Champions League goal. It's a shame how his career ended. I think he had a falling out with Carlo Ancelotti. No, Carlo Ancelotti. Felipe Capello. Fabio Capello, sorry. And there was some politics involved. He didn't want to leave, but the club sold him. And the beautiful moment, though, is you can see this on YouTube. He went to AC Milan and he returned to play Real Madrid in the Champions League, and he got a beautiful standing ovation, and he got a send off that he deserved. So that was really nice to see. But yeah, he is an absolute one of my favourite players of all time. He's number 5 on the list for me. So we have our new manager, Mr. Xavi Alonso. And again, I can hear people saying, "How you've picked him over Tony Cruz? He's won 5 Champions Leagues. He's won another one at Bayern. He's won a World Cup. You're an idiot. I've just subscribed. Now I'm going to unsubscribe." I get it. I get it. You know, if I'm picking like my favourite 11, I think Tony Cruz might be in there. And to be honest, he's probably 6th on this. But the reason why Xavi needs to be in here, in my opinion, is I don't know why people say in my opinion. Obviously, this is my opinion. It's my channel, so I don't need to say those things. It's very stupid. Xavi Alonso, he joined Real Madrid at a time when we'd lost the league to Barcelona. We were in transition. We were getting rid of a lot of the older players, the older guard, the Rauls and the Gutis. We had a defence that consisted of players like Raul Albiol and Ezequiel Garay, if I remember. Pepe was there. Ramos was not the force that he was still right back at the time, and he joined a midfield that had players like Lozano Diarra, and I love Lozano Diarra. He was kind of Kante before Kante. He covered every blade of grass on the pitch. He was a really I really respected Lozano Diarra. Also, Mohamedou Diarra was there, I still believe as well. Also, again, a real an old favourite of mine. He scored the header against Mallorca on the last day of the season that won the first league title that I ever saw. But this was not a world-class midfield. And again, Tony Cruz joined a midfield that had just won the Champions League. So I also think as a player, he had more to his game than Tony Cruz. Defensively, he was better in the air. His tackling was better. Passing, they would be completely equal in mind. They were both beautiful passers of the ball. But I think it's telling that when Tony Cruz joined in 2014, we didn't win a Champions League, and it wasn't the best season we had at all under Ancelotti's in his second season. That's why he eventually got sacked. And it wasn't until Casemiro played next to Tony Cruz that allowed Cruz his freedom, where we really started dominating. Xavi Alonso could do this himself. He could be the defensive midfielder in terms of tackling, playmaking, winning aerial duels. There was no flaw to his game apart from maybe his speed. And in terms of accolades, you know, he also won the World Cup. He won 2 European trophies, of course, and was a key player. And to me, he was just at a time when Barcelona had the best midfield in the world. I loved having a world-class midfielder that could combat them and rival them. And some of these could also be sentimental reasons and bias why I'm picking these players. Of course, you remember the past very fondly as well. And Tony Cruz is a modern player. But to me, Xavi Alonso deserves his spot in the team. Number 3, then we have Jose Martinez Sanchez, or Piri, as he's better known as. And he had to be in this list. Whether it was at 1, at 5, I don't know where, but he had to be in this list. I've put him at 3. I'm guessing if you're watching this video, I mean, no one's watching this video, but if you are watching this video, you've probably not seen him play. I'm also not going to pretend that I've seen him play, but in terms of his greatness, I can. I mean, his stats, for example, he played 561 games for Real Madrid across 16 seasons and scored 172 goals for the club. And why I'm putting him here is greatness, as I said before, can be determined in many ways. This guy was great because of his mind and his attitude and his will to play and win. He played a European Cup Winners' Cup final against Chelsea in the 1970, I want to say, the 1970 season, and he had a sling. He had a sling because he had a broken collarbone, and he played with a sling on his arm. And he also, a few years later, in the Spanish Cup final, broke a collarbone again and also played. And there are so many stories that you can read about him where a night before the game, he's got a temperature of 40 degrees and he still plays the next game. I mean, this guy, it didn't matter what injury he had, he would play. And, people talk about, modern day players. Ramos is a tough guy, or Pepe was a tough guy. No, this guy was a tough guy. And, he's an absolute all-time legend for Real Madrid, and he had to be here in the video. I'm going to try and speed up the next 3 here because I realise I've talked too much already, so I'm just going to go on to number 2. Number 2, quite predictably, the icon, Zinedine Zidane. He had to be in this list, of course. There's not really much to say about Zidane. I could kind of just move on. I just would say that he's the reason I started supporting Real Madrid. I went to see him play at the Bernabeu in 2005. We lost 2-0 against Athletic Bilbao. I think he came on as a substitute, if I remember. And he's the reason I started supporting Madrid. Since I became a fan, there are players that I now probably love a bit more than Zidane. Guti, he was a hero of mine. Raul, of course. But Zidane was the reason I became a Madrid fan back in the day. So, absolute beautiful player. You could pass the ball anywhere around him and he'd be able to control it, whether it's his shoulder, his left foot, right foot. Even the last World Cup I remember in 2006, I remember watching that and he was still great. It's the way he moved, the elegance. Beautiful player to watch. Don't need to talk more about Zidane. And number 1, drum roll, of course, Luka Modric. It had to be Luka Modric. I think he's the greatest. I really do. If you look at all the other players, I don't want to say flaws. They're such good players that I don't want to say they have flaws. But Alonso wasn't the quickest. He wasn't the most mobile. Redondo didn't get that many goals. Zidane defensively didn't have the tenacity of a Luka Modric. There's not really criticisms of them. I'm just to say that Luka Modric could do everything. He had the elegance. He had the fitness. He had the IQ. He really was special. And I'm not going to talk too much because obviously everyone's saying goodbye to Modric now in the Madrid world, so I don't need to go on too much. But what I will say is I wish he would have stayed one more season. I've never seen a 40-year-old play for Real Madrid. That would have been kind of cool just to see as a novelty, I suppose. But his fitness as well. All these other players, they were gone by the time they were 33, 34. Modric is still playing at a high level at this age. He's got all the titles, all the appearances. The iconic moments of taking the corner for Ramos to score the goal, and he allowed the team. Back then as well, he was the glue. Casemiro didn't do too much going forward. Ronaldo, Bale, they didn't do that much tracking back. Modric had to do everything. He connected the team. He ran when players didn't want to run. He was the elegance to create things when the players around him couldn't create. He ran the game, and. We owe a lot to Luka Modric. So here's number 1. Thank you for watching that. I know it was very long. I hope it wasn't too boring for you. If you enjoy it, I'll be happy to do some more. But see you on the next one. Take care.